This cinematography style series was born from trying to expose people to the idea that different cinematographers can have vastly different styles of working. So far I've covered some DPs whose work take on strong stylistic traits, and others who sculpt images around the needs of the story and director, with many being somewhere in the middle. Hélène Louvart forms part of the latter group. Her cinematography is adaptive and flexible. It changes depending on the nature of the project or how the director wants to visually portray their story. Yet, within her ever-changing methodology, there are some consistent verite strains throughout the film she shoots. In this video I'll look at Louvart's philosophy on creating visuals and uncover some of the gear she uses to translate these concepts to the screen. After finishing high school, Louvart went straight to film school in France. She skipped working as an assistant and began shooting short films and documentaries as a DOP, gradually progressing until she started working exclusively on features. With an extensive body of work of over 50 feature films, she's won many awards and worked with many different directors such as Agnes Varda, Wim Wenders, Alice Rohrwacher, and Eliza Hittman. At film school, she was drawn to the camera due to the combination of its technical side with its narrative side and the close proximity with the director. She likes to work with different directors who have varying perspectives on visual storytelling, framing, and camera movement. I try not to have a style. It's very important to try and do something different with each project. Ultimately, it's the director's film, and each director is different, and my job is to try and understand what the director wants. Of course I give my opinion, but my job is to try and lead them where they want to go, and not to have my own style, because then you can only have one point of view. This changing point of view can be seen in her work with Alice Rohrwacher. Their conversations for Happy As Lazzaro led them to shifting their perspective away from their previous work together on films like The Wonders. I didn't want to do the same thing as on our two prior films. We wanted to evolve the way we filmed. Perhaps we drifted towards slightly less subjectivity, towards a more objective storytelling technique at times. To do that, we set up 3 different ways of filming, and each scene only had 1 or 2 of the 3. The first involved a roaming, handheld camera, which followed the actions and the characters. The second was shooting Lazzaro alone on a longer focal length off a tripod. And the third perspective was creating a removed, omniscient frame by shooting the characters in wider frames, often from high up. Louvart sometimes likes to come up with a visual plan like this and sticks to it throughout production, although on other films she can be more flexible to invoke a feeling of realism. This flexibility, which may have evolved from her shooting documentaries, has attracted directors who rely on improvisation in their work. On Rocks, where scenes were devised with a certain spontaneity from the young actors, Louvart was tasked with being flexible and quick enough to capture energetic, improvised action. She pre-planned the lighting and shot with a single camera in a documentary-like style to limit distractions. We tried to remain invisible. Of course, they could see us and we weren't trying to hide ourselves, but it was about letting them take up the space. We weren't afraid to be totally in front of them. It was about striking a balance between letting them have fun, but when we had to be up close and frontal, we did it. Despite her varied filmography, there are similarities in many of the films that she shoots, such as a naturalistic lighting style, a frequent use of a handheld camera, and often shooting on film, 16mm in particular. She favors the medium for its simplicity, increased concentration, which brings a verite energy to set, and, of course, its built-in look. Film, especially 16mm film, provides that sort of visual connection automatically, in the way it renders color, skin tones, and through the overall texture of random grain. As Louvart's cinematography often plays out in the world of verite, she isn't always concerned with making so-called technical mistakes, as they add an element of character. Her approach to lighting is therefore often based on simplicity and naturalism. She likes to pre-light whenever possible and uses area lighting to illuminate the entire set, which the actors can then play around in, sometimes without specific marks or lighting cues. Recently, she likes using LEDs, such as light gear light mats and light tiles. These are rigged around the room and then controlled on dimmers with an iPad. She uses these lights to supplement the natural direction of the ambient light to create a more heightened sense of shape and depth. She also likes to bounce or reflect ARRI L10 and L7 lights, which are RGB LED Fresnels. These can be spotted, meaning they are more directional, with less spill. Louvart usually elects to shoot on spherical lenses with increased definition and sharpness, namely the Zeiss Ultra Primes and sometimes the Cooke S4s. Lenses which resolve images sharply are particularly important on wider shots when shooting 16mm film, whose grainier image can otherwise lack definition. She shot on a variety of cameras, from the digital Alexa Mini to 16mm cameras like the Arriflex 416. Now that the only available Choice 4 film stock comes from Kodak, that's what she elects when shooting 16mm. She sometimes uses 250D for exteriors, although she has a particular liking of Kodak's Vision 3 500 tungsten, which she shot on Never Rarely, Sometimes Always. I went with the 500T as it is a wonderfully flexible film stock for all occasions, the clinic and the subway interiors, as well as bright day and night exteriors. Color-wise, the 500T is lovely and natural on faces, and also worked well in the strange green light of the subways. The level of detail it delivered in the dark areas of the image during the final 2K grade, and the pleasant way it deals with highlights, never ceases to surprise me. She tends to keep her grip setups minimal unless there's a shot that requires specific movement, and regularly works off a tripod or handheld with an easy rig. Louvart's style is one that is constantly changing and adapting, depending on the story or director who she elects to work with. Although the visual perspective of the camera changes depending on her collaborator, she still pushes her own ideas, which has resulted in a subtle, natural, slightly rough, verite style seeping into the films she has shot throughout her lengthy career. Louvart's filmography is a testament to her careful eye for consistently selecting screenplays and directors whose work has made a lasting impact on the world of cinema. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Cinematography Style. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the video, along with any suggestions for future DPs you'd like to see featured. Until next time, thanks for watching and goodbye.